the Law of One Breakdown channel. Have you ever wondered what the raw material actually says about Jesus, free will, sexuality, and even hair? Each week we go straight to the original sessions and explore one topic through the pure wisdom of the Law of One. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this subject. Let's begin.
This is going to be part 2 of the energy centers, or chakras. And like I said in the part 1, I just scratched the surface. Ra has so much to say about the energy centers, so let's learn together. Okay, we're going to start off in session 54.26. And Dawn asks, can you describe the energy that enters any of these energy centers? Can you describe its path from its origin, its form, and its effect? I don't know if this is possible, but can you do that? And Ra says, the origin of all energy is the action of free will upon love. The nature of all energy is light. The means of its ingress into the mind-body-spirit complex is duple. Firstly, there is the inner light, which is Polaris of self, the guiding star. This is the birthright and true nature of all entities. This energy dwells within. And session 54.26 continues. The second point of ingress is the polar opposite of the North Star, shall we say, and may be seen if you wish to use the physical body as an analog for the magnetic field, as coming through the feet from the earth and through the lower point of the spine, or the root chakra. This point of ingress of the universal light energy is undifferentiated until it begins its filtering process through the energy centers. The requirements of each center and the efficiency with which the individual has learned to tap into the inner light determines the nature of the use made by the entity of these in-streamings. Now, I had an interesting thing happen. This was a few years back, and I basically went to a little island that I hadn't been before. I had just bought a new car, I had a new dog, and I took the day off of work and went and played on the island. I had the time of my life. I just had a constant smile on my face the entire day. Now, the next morning, I woke up and I have never felt like that before. It was so negative. So it was the absolute polar opposite of what I felt the day before. And I couldn't shake it. And I found myself, instead of going to work, because I didn't think I could handle it, to be honest. I just felt horrible. Not physically, but mentally. And I kept shaking my hands like I was trying to shake something out of me. It was very unusual. And I found myself going to a beach. And I just stood there going, what is going on? I'm either losing my mind, or I'm dying, or I'm being attacked in the most horrible way. I didn't know what. And I found myself doing some weird stretches and some weird moves on the beach. And I did it 3 different times, and it ended with me throwing my hands down into the sand. And after the 3rd time, it was whatever that horrible energy that I had within me, it was gone. It just disappeared. And then I was like on cloud 9. I was like so blissed out. And so, interestingly, the very next day I was reading the Law of One, and they were talking about antithesis. And, there is an opposite for every, let's say, emotion. So anyway, that's kind of a side story for a few different reasons. One, I believe that what happened on that beach to release this horribleness was released by, just like Ra just said in this last slide, that it comes up through your feet and through your root chakra. Because I kind of felt like I was doing it. And I was doing some weird stretches, and my back was popping. And then I ended it with the way I ended it. And it just dispelled that complete horribleness and the opposite of how I felt the day before. And then literally the next day I had the lesson of antithesis and the opposites. So I really try not to get overly giddy and happy, because I do find that oftentimes I have to counter that energy with the opposite of that. And balance, it's about balancing. It's finding that kind of middle way. Okay, in session 54.9, Dawn asks, do all mind, body, spirit complexes in the entire creation have the 7 energy centers once they have reached full development, or development to the point where they can have 7 energy centers? That's a good question. And Ra says, these energy centers are in potential in macrocosm from the beginning of creation by the Logos, coming out of timelessness. All is prepared. This is so of the infinite creation. And I made a few videos on the densities, and 8th sort of rolls into the next iteration of first density, and that's where you can kind of go and learn about Logos and how it comes out of this timelessness state, or the great sleep and whatnot. Okay, in session 40.4, Dawn asks, then the bodily energy centers for an individual would be, assuming that the individual evolves in a straight line from 1st through 8th density, would each of these energy centers or chakras be activated to completion if everything worked as it should? Would each be activated to completion to the greatest intensity by the end of the experience in each density? Another great question. And Ra says, hypothetically speaking, this is correct. However, the fully activated being is rare. Much emphasis is laid upon the harmonies and balances of individuals. There's that balance word again. And when you're learning those balance lessons, it can be pretty harsh at times, like the experience I told you about earlier. Okay, and it continues on in session 40.4. It is necessary for graduation across densities for the primary energy centers to be functioning in such a way as to communicate with intelligent infinity, and to appreciate and bask in this light in all of its purity. However, to fully activate each energy center is the mystery of few, for each center has a variable speed of rotation or activity. The important observation to be made once all necessary centers are activated to the minimal necessary degree is the harmony and balance between these energy centers. Again, there's that balance word. Okay, and the next 2 slides have to do with the 6th energy center, or the third eye. This is session 54.32. Dawn asks, what if a mind-body-spirit complex feels a feeling in meditation at the indigo center? What is he feeling? And Ra says, one who feels this activation is one experiencing in-streaming at that energy center to be used either for the unblocking of this center, for its tuning to match the harmonics of its other energy centers, or to activate the gateway to intelligent infinity. We cannot be specific, for each of these 3 workings is experienced by the entity which feels this physical complex distortion. Okay, and in session 54.30, and Dawn asks, I'll make this statement, which may be somewhat distorted, and let you correct it. We have coming through the feet and base of the spine the total energy that the mind-body-spirit complex will receive in the way of what we call light. Each energy center, as it is met, filters out and uses a portion of this energy. Red through violet. Is this correct? And Ra says, this is largely correct. The exceptions are as follows. The energy ingress ends with indigo. The violet ray is a thermometer or indicator of the whole. And I also want to point out that yesterday I didn't finish up session 15.12. I didn't do it on purpose. I just forgot that slide when I was going through them and making this recording. So I'm going to finish it up, and it also talks about that the violet ray or your crown chakra. The remaining center of energy influx is simply the total expression of the entity's vibratory complex of mind, body, and spirit. It is as it will be, balanced or imbalanced, has no meaning at this energy level, for it gives and takes in its own balance, whatever the distortion may be. It cannot be manipulated as can the others, and therefore has no particular importance in viewing the balancing of an entity. So sorry about that. I left that out by accident yesterday, but there you go. And it just reiterates the slide right before this one. And these next two slides have to do with pendulums. Okay, in session 58.5, Dawn asks, am I correct in assuming that what I would do would be to dangle a weight approximately 2 feet below my hand and place it over the body, and the weight started moving in a clockwise rotation direction, it would indicate an unblocked energy center. Is this correct? And Ross says, the measurement from hand to weight is unimportant and at your discretion. The circular motion shows an unblocked energy center. However, some entities are polarized the reverse of others, and therefore it is well to test the form of normal energy spirals before beginning this procedure. So that's interesting. I've heard other people have experiences with using pendulums and figuring out if they have a blocked energy center or not. I have not done it myself, but that's yet another way to understand yourself and your energy centers even more. Okay, and in session 60.31, Dawn asks, the instrument, which is Carla, wished to know when using the pendulum for discovering energy centers if the back and forth motion meant anything rather than the circular motion. And Ross says, the rotations having been discussed, we shall simply say that the weak back and forth motion indicates a partial blockage, although not a complete blockage. The strong back and forth motion indicates the reverse of blockage, which is overstimulation of a chakra or energy center, which is occurring in order to attempt to balance some difficulty in body or mind complex activity. This condition is not helpful to the entity as it is unbalanced. Okay, and I've got one last slide left. And it was the slide that I said was so powerful in part 1. And I just wanted to share it again because I still think it's an extremely good thing to remember as you go through life and experience all sorts of things, both good and unpleasant. And so this is session 41.19. And Ra's already been talking about the energy centers. And then this is what Ra has to say at the end of that session. The key to balance may then be seen in the unstudied, spontaneous, and honest response of entities towards experiences, thus using experience to the utmost, then applying the balancing exercises and achieving the proper attitude for the most purified spectrum of energy center manifestation in violet ray. This is why the brilliance or rotational speed of the energy centers is not considered above the balanced aspect or violet ray manifestation of an entity in regarding harvestability. For those entities which are unbalanced, especially as to the primary rays, will not be capable of sustaining the impact of the love and light of intelligent infinity to the extent necessary for harvest. And again, that violet ray manifestation that Ra keeps calling out is your crown chakra, and it's sort of the sum total or a snapshot of how all your other energy centers are doing. Okay, well, that is it for this one, and I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a little bit more about your energy centers. Take care, everybody.